So I absolutely love Totally Killer. I honestly think it's one of the best movies to come out in 2023. And on paper, this movie really should not have worked in terms of bringing together time-traveling science fiction along with a bit of a teen slasher movie with a comedic style. Like I said, this should not have worked, but the end result could not have been better. And honestly, this is one of the best movies, like I said, from not only a year's point of view, but also from a teen slasher genre perspective. And it makes so many references to Scream and to Back to the Future as well, and takes a lot of inspiration from them whilst also being its own thing at the same time. So it's really clever in terms of establishing brand new rules and creating a bit of a new atmosphere, even though it is pretty similar to a lot of other things that you have seen. I just love the fact that it's just unapologetically itself, and the casting is absolutely brilliant. The storytelling mechanics is really good. The pacing is really, really brilliant. Just everything that takes place in this movie is just so good. And even though it can feel a little bit comedic and satire in points, it is pretty chilling at the same time, especially from the moment it gets going, because the opening kill is actually a bit like an unstoppable Ghostface character and is really, really tragic, as the person that he is killing is ultimately really self-defense trained and has just been building herself, getting herself ready for this moment, and still is going to lose to this new Sweet 16 killer. It was honestly such a shocking way to start this movie. So like I said, even though it has got comedic aspects to it, it is pretty adrenaline fueled too. I mean, I would have loved a couple more bigger, grander sequences. For example, you know, it has got a bit of a cabin in the woods scenario, it has got a bit of a party scenario, which we've seen in a lot of teen slasher movies, and the final big set sequence is of course in a fun fair, which like I said, we have seen as well. But the way in which it does it is really good. If anything, like I said, I would have loved even more, as I was just so enjoying this film. But I think for what they did pack into it, it was really, really good. And I think it was really, really clever, as when you're in present day, right in the beginning, it does set up a lot of the relationships that you are then going to see when you travel into the past being further expanded upon, and actually being really surprising and really shocking. And all of the impacts of changing the past, what's going to happen in the present day, I think it was all explained really, really well. And then what happens when the present day then tries to influence the past, all of that was just so good. So even though they could have had a couple more innovative death sequences and a couple more jump scares, I feel like it's fine because this isn't its primary focus. But the things that they do in this movie, I feel like is at a level where it is actually really believable and at least doesn't dip in quality. One thing that I absolutely loved was looking at the past with a bit of a modern lens and seeing how far society has come over the last 30 years and how things that were acceptable back then are not acceptable now, but you can make fun of that at the same time. So I think that was just communicated so well, and I think all of the actors just did such a good job. For example, Kiernan and Shipka just looking at it from a modern lens point of view, and then all of the other actors just thinking like, this is how things are now. And it was really fun as well, revisiting the past back at a time when, you know, this is actually how things used to be. For example, looking at things from a racial perspective, looking at things from a mean girl's perspective, the fact that smartphones didn't really exist, the fact that DNA was very different back then. And speaking of Kiernan Shipka, she was pretty flawless in this role. Honestly, I couldn't fault her at all, as she was just so good in playing this Jamie character. As firstly, she was bringing all of the emotion, for example, being really stubborn and being a bit rebellious right in the beginning, then all of the sadness that she was experiencing, all of the frustration as well, and then a lot of humorous sequences. So like I said, she was just so good, especially as she is the eyes and ears for the audience, and so not only can you understand everything that's going on, but you're really rooting for this character, you're really laughing with her, you're really crying with her. So all of the sequences that Kiernan Shipka was in, which was pretty much every single sequence in this movie, like I said, was pretty wicked. And I also think the wider casting in this movie is really, really good, as they have picked people that have played in a bit of a similar genre in their body of work. So for example, Lachlan Munro, who I honestly think is one of the best actors in the business and has just been in so many projects. Although he was really good as the adult version of Blake, and he is a bit of a paternal figure for Jamie, and of course he is the Black Hood murderer in Riverdale, so brilliant person to have in here. And the teen version of Blake is played by Charlie Giuseppe, and he is a bit of a horny jock, and I just think it was just so funny seeing what Kiernan Shipka is going to make of this character, and what she is also going to make of Olivia Holt, who is her mean girl mother back in the 80s. All of those sequences were so good. If anything, I would have just loved a couple more family sequences between these three, but she is just always trying to prevent these two actually getting together and protecting them from the murderer, as of course she does want to actually be born in the new present day timeline when she does go back in time. And speaking of other actors that have played very similar roles, Leigh-Anne Liberto was so good, as she was obviously playing Quinn in Scream 6, so she was so good here and playing another very ditzy character. Chris, the podcast host, was really good too. I feel like anyone that has a podcast just adds so much drama when you hear the voiceover in these kind of shows, especially in Only Murders in the Building as well. So he was really good. I love the fact that, you know, her best friend and her mother are the ones that are helping her both in the past and in the present in terms of doing all of the time traveling. Very similar relationship to Doc and Marty from Back to the Future. And I love how pretty much every single character is able to learn and grow a lot. So where they are in the beginning of this movie to where they are by the end of it is just so good, because the journeys that they go on is just so brilliant. And like I said, as an audience member, you are on this journey with them, so you can also learn a lot from them too. And I'm really glad that they didn't do this in a bit of a preachy way, as they really definitely did focus on the story and the premise and the atmosphere before all of this lessons type stuff is taking place. And as always in these teen slasher movies, the final act is really good, because not only is it really intense and a lot of crazy things take place, all of the reveals in terms of who is the person behind the mask is always really shocking, and this movie was no different, as it was really brilliantly executed, and also really believable, as when it is being revealed you are then able to put all of the clues together, and they definitely did put the breadcrumbs there for you to piece everything together, so you are able to be like, oh okay, so that's why this happened, which is really good. And I just love the premise of this movie, and I think the execution was even better, and so for all of those reasons I'm going to give Totally Killer a massive 8 out of 10. Now I'd love to hear from you. What did you think of this movie? Do you think it will get a sequel? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.